In most industries, the person who does the most important work gets paid the most. A surgeon earns more than a hospital porter. A football striker generally earns more than his manager. In construction and demolition, however, we've managed to flip that logic on its head. We've built a system where the further you are from the site, the more money you make, and the longer you get to hold on to the cash before passing it down to the people who actually earned it. At the top of the construction food chain sits the tier one contractor. They don't own any excavators, they don't get their boots dirty, assuming they actually own any. They win multi-million-pound projects based on glossy brochures and AI renders showing a pristine clinical demolition and construction process. They promise the client a seamless journey from implementation to completion. But in reality, they're a glorified clearinghouse. They break the project into pieces, shave a healthy margin off the top for the management of the process that they don't actually perform, and then they look for the lowest bidder to do the heavy lifting. And this is where the whole upside down world becomes truly predatory. The tier one firm is usually the most liquid entity in the chain, yet they operate as if they are perpetually broke. The specialist subcontractors, the firms providing the men and the machines, are the ones who actually fund the project. These firms carry massive overheads paying for fuel, insurance, and wages every Friday while they wait 60, 90, or even 120 days for a tier one to release the cash. That pay when paid mentality might be legally frowned upon, but under the guise of administrative delays, valuation disputes, or retentions, it still remains the industry standard. The smallest companies in the supply chain are effectively acting as interest free banks for the largest corporations in the industry. And that absurdity extends to the way we handle safety and the law. We now have a system of corporate manslaughter where culpability is designed to flow upward. On paper, that sounds like accountability, but in practice, it's a farce. If there is a fatal accident on site, the legal crosshairs move straight to the boardroom. You could end up with a situation where a managing director who has not set foot on a live site in 3 years is technically liable for a systemic failure. Meanwhile, at the coalface, the reality is very different. We see a culture of tick box safety. The tier one insists on endless inductions and safety posters, yet the commercial pressure they put on the subcontractor is actually what creates the danger. When you squeeze a firm on price and then squeeze them on the timeline as well, you're choosing speed over safety. But when it goes wrong, the tier one points to the method statement and claims the workers on the ground were the people at fault. They want the credit for the speed, but none of the blame for the shortcuts that the speed requires. The most biting irony is this. A project worth £100 million is planned to the millimetre by project managers earning six-figure salaries. They use sophisticated software to track every nut and bolt. Yet when the actual work begins, the success of that entire investment often rests on a single person, an excavator operator hired through an agency at the 11th hour. A person who is being paid barely above minimum wage, has no job security beyond the end of the week, is the one holding the structural integrity of the entire project in his hands. If he makes a mistake, the project fails. If he hits a service, the site and possibly a large chunk of the city shuts down. The tier one's crack team of managers are basically spectators the moment the engine starts. They've spent millions on planning, but they've outsourced the actual execution to the cheapest possible person they could find on a Tuesday morning. We point at the medical profession and question why a suit-wearing administrator is earning 5 times more than the nurses mopping up the blood. Yet we are equally culpable, equally guilty. Our industry is inverted. We've created a world where the person who signs the insurance policy is considered more vital and more valuable than the person who ensures that the building doesn't fall down. We know that if every project manager in the City of London stayed in bed tomorrow, the work would still get done. But if the warm body in the excavator decides not to show up, the whole house of cards collapses. This industry is standing on its head, supported by the very people it treats with the most contempt. We're living in a world where the view from the top is only possible because of the people we've buried at the bottom. Sometimes literally.